I'll be right back. We're definitely naming our kids Cher!
What was popular, and how has it affected gaming today? If we go back around 20 years, gaming wasn't the same as what we know and love today. The 90s had its own genre of gaming and was an innovation to a lot of modern games and was an iconic time for a lot of gamers. The 90s was composed of games like Tetris,
Boom, Tetris for Jap. Boom, Tetris for Jap.
that sold 26.6 million units worldwide, Pokemon Red, Green, and Blue version for the Game Boy with 23.5 million units, Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo with 20.61 million units, Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES with 15 million, and Super Mario Land for the Game Boy with 14 million units sold, all of which through the 90s were top selling games. In 1996, Super Mario 64 from Nintendo 64 gave you the old characters that you know and love and took them and put them into a 3D world. It now sits as the best selling Nintendo 64 title with 11.89 million units sold worldwide. Final Fantasy VII was a 1997 PS1 icon that sold 9.25 million units and innovated the idea of character arcs, adding a whole new fandom to MMORPGs. GoldenEye 007 1997 is an FPS that sold over 8 million units. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for the N64 that was brought out in 1998 was an action-adventure game in Japan. More than 820,000 copies were sold in 1998, making it the year's 10th best-selling game during its lifetime. Street Fighter II, 1991. Street Fighter II had been played by at least 25 million people in the United States, at home and in arcades. The console ports sold more than 14 million copies worldwide, including 6.3 million copies on the SNES, the Super Nintendo. I'm sure if you have a pair of working ears and eyes, you've heard of most of, if not all of these games. All of these games are the foundation of gaming, but what kind of technology was behind it? Overall, I think the 90s was a step in the right direction for gaming, slowly stepping away from arcade machines, household consoles becoming more prominent, which would change how we played games forever. Consoles like the Super Nintendo came out in 1990, PlayStation was released in 1994, Nintendo came out with the Nintendo 64 in 1996, Dreamcast in 1999, Game Boy came out in 1990 in Europe and 1989 in North America, Game Boy Color came out in 1998, and the Sega Saturn came out in 1994. Fourth generation consoles, which was anything made within 1990 to 1993, games and systems programmed for 16-bit era and mainly 2D graphics, but trials on 3D had started, whereas fifth generation consoles, anything from 1993 to 1999, most widely known to be the 32 and 64-bit era, it was the beginning of mass production of 3D games. Most consoles in the 90s used 64 kilobytes of audio RAM, Game Boy used 8-bit, with simple melodies and early sound synthesizer technology. You might be thinking to yourself at this point, why do I care? Well, games and technology from the 90s is all around us, but with minor or major tweaks to cater to the more modern audience. So in other words, it's impacted gaming today. Well, the Dreamcast introduced the beginning of online gaming because of its built-in modem. It was also the first home console to always display full SD resolution. 1990s was the development of innovation of FPS games, first-person shooters, such as Wolfenstein 3D 1992, as well as improving 3D graphics for gaming, which enhanced the experience of games such as Super Mario 64 and Sonic Adventure. Today's consoles such as the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, Nintendo 3DS, and Wii U are all very good examples of consoles today versus consoles in the 90s, all of which have upgraded from the 8, 16, 32, and 64-bit era to the 1080p 60 FPS and starting into 4K. The making of 3D games in the 90s has only been improving upon, as most AAA games are now 3D. They have better graphics than ever before, and the FPS and shooter games in general have moved from Wolfenstein 3D to games like Call of Duty, Battlefield, CSGO, Overwatch, and Fortnite. Not FPS shooter, but nonetheless. We've gone from the original Pokemon Red, Green, and Blue from the Game Boy, black and white 8-bit without even having a backlight yet, to now Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu for the Nintendo Switch. Gaming in the 90s is the reason and the innovation for consoles like Xbox One and PS4. Without people gaming, there would be no reason to innovate. I can't find much in the 90s, but I can imagine the demographic hasn't changed much from modern day. In 2017, I found young men from ages 18 to 29 played more games than other ages, and ages 30 to 49 say they play video games often or sometimes. The 90s was aiming to market towards teens and young adults with games that could be played by all ages like Pokemon and Mario. The reason they marketed towards the younger audience would be the same reason they do today, because younger audiences have more time to play their game and get them hooked. Overall, the concept of gaming hasn't changed much. You might be a 90s gamer who really enjoyed the old games and thinks that they're the best things to grace its presence on this earth. I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. In fact, more power to you. I am saying, however, that overall gaming is made to be fun, and forget the politics and microtransactions that come with the new games. If you can sit down with a group of friends or on your own and say you had fun playing the game, then I feel like the game did its job. Every era of gaming has at least few games that proverbially shit the bed, but the opposite is true for most amazing games. The 90s introduced the idea of consoles and staying home when gaming, and therefore making it easy to pass time. Gaming is only getting better with things like VR becoming popular and just bringing the immersion to life even more. It's something that people from all ages can enjoy, and is the reason for maturity ages on games. It can be a mindless task, but it can also take all of your focus, making it very diverse for what type of gaming you want to do. Anyone can do it. It's easy. You can sit on the couch, press buttons. There's no physical aspect to it. The online aspect, you can connect to people. The 90s introduced the games where, we've never seen them before. It piqued consumers' interest. They were new. The idea of marketing also took off in the 90s, which meant it was easier to make new games that were coming out all the time with better chance of being seen and even talked about. But truly, I feel like the most overall thing that matters is the fact that it's a fun thing to do. So you can look at modern technology, VR, and 4K graphics mixed with games that just blow the old games away, and like I said, the gaming has changed a little, but at its core are the 90s games. The foundations of what we know as gaming today. We as a gaming community will never forget games like Mario, Pokemon, and Zelda because they were the first to be the greatest of all time. The first to change a medium as we know it. So as long as we have fun, no matter how advanced our technology gets, we'll always have a little bit of the 90s to thank for that. So was gaming in the 90s an entirely new innovation to technology and just a new genre of gaming as a whole? Or am I going too far? Let me know if you guys want more videos like this in the comments below. It would mean a lot to me. If we get a lot of likes on this, maybe my mark will go up. Hint, hint. Anyway, guys, check out my other videos on screen here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace off, my dudes.
I wish I found some better sounds no one's ever heard. I wish I had a better voice to sing some better words. I wish I found some chords in an order that is new. I wish I didn't have to rhyme every time I sang. I was told when I get older all my fears would shrink, but now I'm insecure and I care what people think. My name's Blurry Face and I care what you think. My name's Blurry Face and I